Petrofac operates in difficult and potentially hazardous environments, and we are regarded within our industry as a standard setter in terms of health and safety management. At Petrofac, we've a diverse workforce working right across the globe, and we have a commitment to you and everyone working within this organisation. Our commitment is the same for everyone. Wherever you are, whatever you do, your safety is our #1 priority at all times. But what does this really mean? It means we are committed to achieving health and safety excellence in the workplace, and that we promote a culture where everyone shares in that commitment. It's our aim to completely eliminate accidents and incidents, and we do this in an environment of honesty and complete transparency. But it's not just about words. It's about how we can all make it a reality through following the 8 golden rules of safety. The area and facility in which you're working is a Horizon Zero workplace. But what is Horizon Zero? It's a campaign which uses the 8 golden rules of safety to help you work better and work safer. It's not about forcing you to change the way you work. It's about you wanting to take personal responsibility for your safety. It's about you being aware of the consequences of unsafe actions, not just for yourself, but for your colleagues. It's about empowering you to stop an unsafe act or highlighting an unsafe condition. And it's about being recognised for doing so. No fear, no reprisal, just everyone helping one another to work better and work safer. Further materials relating to Horizon Zero and the 8 golden rules of safety are available on Petrofac intranet and printed format. Familiarise yourself with the rules and understand them. But more importantly, put them into practice and get involved. It doesn't matter what job you do, you need to know what they are and you need to use them. And if you think they don't apply to you, think again. They do. Now, let's briefly look at the 8 golden rules of safety. And remember, if you are in doubt about anything to do with safety, you have the right to raise it. At Petrofac, it's not just a right, it's an expectation. Golden rule of safety: permit to work. Whether it's entering a confined space, working on an energy system, working on excavation or ground disturbance, or hot work, you'll need a permit. So what does a permit do? Basically, it defines the work scope and the hazards and risks associated with it. But importantly, it helps you eliminate these hazards and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. It communicates with your work party and anyone else working nearby, and it makes sure you leave the site in a safe state when work's complete. You'll receive in-depth training on the permitting system. You'll hear it referred to as a safe system of work. It's exactly that. And don't forget, the issue of a permit doesn't in itself make a job safe. That's up to you. It's there to help you prepare better, to work better, and to work safer. But remember, every job should be risk assessed, whether it requires a permit or not. And if a permit's required, the consequences of ignoring the process or shortcutting the system can be extremely serious. In the worst case, resulting in death or serious injury. Before starting any work activity, think. And whether a permit has been issued or not, if you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor and discuss your concerns. If appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. Golden rule of safety: energy isolation. Before commencing work on any energy system, whether it's mechanical, electrical, process, hydraulic, or any other energy source, think. Working on any type of live equipment poses a significant risk. Never do it. Any energy source must be isolated from the equipment you're working on if that energy source could cause it to start up. If there's likely to be any stored energy in the system or equipment, it must be discharged. The isolation must then be tested and checked, locked and tagged. And it must be checked regularly. Every single isolation must be approved by a responsible person. Never work on live equipment. And if you're in doubt, ask your supervisor. But remember, if you're working on an energy system, or a system where there may be stored energy, you'll need a permit. And the consequences of ignoring the process or shortcutting the system are extremely serious. There are absolutely no exceptions to the isolation process. If you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor, discuss your concerns, and if appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. Golden rule of safety: ground disturbance. Before carrying out any work which disturbs or removes earth, whether by cutting or by digging a trench or cavity, think. Ask yourself: are there any underground hazards such as pipes or cables? If there are, have I considered where they are before starting work? Have any potential sources of energy been isolated? Has the hazard been risk assessed? And have I considered ground conditions and the most appropriate method of moving earth? If the answer's no to any of these, then it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. Before entering any excavation, think. Have I got a confined space entry permit? Has ground movement been controlled so a collapse can't happen? Have I considered changes in the ground conditions? And has the hazard and the risk been assessed by a responsible person? If the answer's no to any of these, then it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. But remember, every job involving ground disturbance requires a permit. And the consequences of ignoring the process or shortcutting the system can be extremely serious. Any earth excavation has the potential to collapse, and in the worst case can result in death or serious injury. If you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor, discuss your concerns, and, if appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. Golden rule of safety: confined space entry. So what's a confined space? Basically, it's any space large enough for a person to enter, and where there's a risk of death or serious injury from asphyxiation, or where they may become trapped. Before carrying out any work in a confined space, think. Ask yourself: is there an alternative? Do we have to enter the confined space? Has a permit been issued? And is it posted at the worksite? Does everyone in the work party understand the job? And are they competent to do the work? Have all potential energy sources in the confined space been isolated? Has the space been ventilated? And has this been carried out correctly? Has a gas test been carried out? And has it been verified and repeated as required by the permit or risk assessment? Is a standby person stationed for an emergency? And has unauthorised entry been prohibited? If the answer's no to any of these, then it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. But remember, the most dangerous hazards in a confined space are unseen. Toxic gases are invisible and at concentrations which can kill, odourless. Oxygen depletion is equally dangerous. If you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor, discuss your concerns, and if appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. And if you're a standby person, never enter to carry out a rescue. That's the emergency response team's responsibility. Raise the alarm and wait for assistance. Don't become another victim. Golden rule of safety. Working at height. So what's working at height? Basically, a place is at height if you could be injured falling from it, even if it's at or below ground level. Before carrying out any work at height, think. Ask yourself, is there sufficient visibility? Remember, visibility may be impaired by many environmental conditions such as poor light, heavy rain, or even sandstorms. Is the weather safe enough for working at height? Consider fog, mist, or even snow and ice in certain areas. If you're in any doubt at all, ask your supervisor. But if conditions are okay for working at height, there are only two options. Either use a fixed platform with handrails, or use fall arrest equipment. That doesn't include ladders. They're only safe for gaining access to height. Ask yourself, has the fixed platform on which I'm about to work got handrails? Has it been verified and approved by a responsible person? Is my fall arrest equipment anchored correctly? Is it a full body harness with double latch and self-locking snap hooks? Has it got synthetic lanyards and a shock absorber? If I fall, does it limit my fall? And of course, am I competent to carry out the task? Has it been visually inspected to check for damage? If the answer's no to any of these, then it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. And don't forget, if fall arrest equipment has been used in a fall, take it out of service permanently. But remember, every job involving working at height will require a risk assessment and a permit. And the consequences of ignoring the process or shortcutting the system are extremely serious and will not be tolerated. If you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor. Discuss your concerns, and if appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. Golden rule of safety. Lifting operations. Work involving lifting nearly always involves risk. When something is lifted, it stores energy, and if something goes wrong, that energy is released. The results can be devastating. Before you use a crane, hoist, or any other mechanical lifting device, think. Ask yourself, is the operator of the powered lifting device trained and certified to use it? Has the lifting equipment been certified for use within the last 12 months? Are the safety devices on the lifting equipment working? Is the load too heavy? Does the lift exceed the capabilities of the equipment? Has the lift been assessed and the lift method and equipment been approved by a responsible person? Has the load been rigged by a responsible person? And finally, have all lifting devices and equipment been visually examined and approved before any lift? If the answer's no to any of these, it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. But remember, powered lifting activities can be dangerous by their very nature. There are many types and all have the potential to cause death or serious injury. Whether a permit is issued for a high-risk lifting activity or whether the lifting activity is considered routine, don't take any risks. If you're in any doubt at all about starting a task, ask your supervisor, discuss your concerns, and if appropriate, carry out a risk assessment and reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then, and only then, is it safe to start work. Golden Rule of Safety: Management of Change. But what do we mean by change? We mean changes to organization, personnel, systems, processes and procedures, changes to equipment, products, materials or substances. We also mean changes which may occur during design and engineering, and even changes to the laws and regulations under which we work. Before carrying out any work where temporary or permanent change has taken place, think. If there's been any change, even weather changes at the worksite, a risk assessment must be carried out. You should have a work plan which states the timescale for the change and what control measures are going to be used. It doesn't matter whether it's changes to equipment, facilities or processes, changes to operations, maintenance or inspection, or changes to training, people or documentation. For example, you cannot start work until the work plan has been approved, and that work plan must consider change every time. If change hasn't been considered, it's unsafe. Raise it with your supervisor. But remember, the consequences of change can occur absolutely anywhere and at any time, wherever you work, whatever you do. Be in no doubt. The implications of not managing change correctly can be extremely serious, and taking shortcuts is totally unacceptable. Before starting a job, ask yourself, have any changes taken place which may affect my safety or the safety of my colleagues? On completing a job, ask yourself, have I thought through the implications of the change I've introduced? And if change has occurred, have I communicated it and have I recorded it? Golden Rule of Safety: Driving safety. Across the world, over 3,000 people lose their lives to road traffic accidents every day. Whether we're at work or with our families, that makes driving and road traffic one of the greatest hazards to us all. Before driving any vehicle, whatever type, even self-propelled mobile plant, think. The vehicle must be roadworthy, fit for purpose and safe. It mustn't carry too many passengers. Any loads must be secure and mustn't exceed the maximum allowed weight. You must always wear a seatbelt. If there isn't one, don't get into the vehicle. Any driver must be trained, certified, and medically fit to drive the class of vehicle. And if you're a motorbike rider, always wear a safety helmet. If you're in any doubt whether you should drive or be a passenger, it's unsafe. Obey the rules of the road and adhere to the speed limit at all times. And remember, never use or answer mobile radios or phones when driving. And don't drive under the influence of alcohol or drugs under any circumstances. You'll receive a copy of the Petrofac Motor Vehicles Code of Conduct. Familiarise yourself with it, but more importantly, put it into practice. But remember, the majority of road traffic accidents and the heartbreak which ensues for families and loved ones is avoidable. It's about obeying the rules of the road, adhering to the speed limit, and driving with consideration for others. Ask yourself if the journey is really necessary. And if it is, plan your journey and consider the driving conditions. If you're tired, take a break. Be aware and be vigilant at all times. Remember, one small lapse is all it takes. That concludes this video. If we all have the right attitude and adopt the right behaviours, all accidents and incidents can be avoided. Be aware, be vigilant, and take responsibility for your safety and the safety of your colleagues at all times. Familiarise yourself with the 8 golden rules of safety and apply them in your daily life. Thank you for watching.